Please like by pressing the thumbs up icon below. It costs nothing and helps bump the page up on the algorithm. Subscribe if you'd like to be notified when new content is posted. Thank you for taking the time to listen. This content is adult related and may be distressing for some people. Story 58, Catching Her at the Hotel, Part 2 of 2. My phone had almost non-stop notifications as I sat there. Rachel's name flashed on the screen again and again. Please come home. I'm sorry. I love you. Let's talk. Each message was just another reminder of the end of our marriage. I had to turn off my phone after I booked a hotel online. Yeah, it's funny sitting outside of the Westin looking for a cheap hotel on Expedia to spend my first night away from my wife. That night, I looked at our wedding photos on my phone in a hotel room across town. Rachel, in all white, smiled up at me like I was her whole world. I deleted it, along with every other picture with her. Then I took off my wedding ring. It's strange how irrationally angry I got because of the indentation that was on my finger, like I couldn't get away from her. Yeah, so that night was a night of drinking. Just me sitting on the balcony overlooking the city with a bottle and a glass. It took a few days to find a divorce lawyer. But I needed the time. Remembering how she'd looked in that hotel lobby, caught between the man she'd promised herself to, and the man she'd given herself to. I think it was at that moment that she finally understood what she was losing. Days passed in the almost blissful numbing quiet of my hotel room. I don't know about other people, but I need time alone to process my feelings, which started with the death of my dad. Eventually, I drove to the house where my entire life still sat in drawers, closets, and boxes in the garage. It was strange sitting in a hotel room making notes on that little tablet of paper they left on the desk. I was sitting there, writing down a list of things I needed to get out of the house and another on what I'd need to do to start untangling my life from hers. I had to decide what I'd take and what I'd leave behind. Rachel's texts had become increasingly desperate. Crap like "please come home. I'll do anything. I'm dying without you." I really did think of blocking her number, but I decided that she was essentially outlining everything I'd need to prove in the divorce in her text messages. When you get the gift of a text from your cheating spouse that literally says she's so sorry for cheating and pleading that it was just physical. I live in one of those states where infidelity can be used as a reason for divorce. The separation would be pretty straightforward, but I could show that my wife chose to move into a relationship outside of our marriage, which would give me an edge when it came to dividing our lives. What I wanted was simple. I just wanted out. My preference was to sell and divide everything 50-50 and not get saddled with any alimony. Not that the money was the issue, it was the monthly reminder of what she did to me. I wanted to be separated in every way. I chose Monday afternoon to go home, knowing she'd normally be at work. But as I pulled into our driveway, her car sat there. I almost bailed but forced myself to get on with it. She must have heard the garage door because she was at the kitchen entrance before I could even get out of my car. The sight of her knocked the wind out of me. She looked like a different person. She looked haggard, like she hadn't slept in days, her face bare of makeup with huge dark circles under her red eyes. She was wearing one of my old college sweatshirts. Her skin looked pale and clammy, and she was sweating. Her voice cracked as I walked in. Her speech was slurred like she'd been drinking, saying something like, "You came back." Tears were streaming down her face, and her hands were trembling so she kept wringing them together. It was strange that the first thing I noticed walking in the house after passing my wife, was the familiar scent of our home. It hit me hard. I simply told her, "I'm just here for some of my stuff." Then I told her I'd get the rest later with the movers. The resulting conversation went something like this. "John, please." As she followed me up the stairs, keeping her distance. "I know I don't deserve it, but please just listen to me. 10 minutes. That's all I'm asking for." I started pulling clothes from the closet, shoving them into a suitcase without looking at what I was grabbing. "What could you possibly say, Rachel? That you're sorry? That it meant nothing? That fucking him for 3 years while coming home to me was just some kind of mistake? Are you going to fix this somehow and make me forget everything I've seen? Are you going to be able to make me forget everything you put me through over the last couple of weeks? Seeing you with your boss at the hotel? Knowing you ignored my message so you could screw him?" She looked at me with this weird shocked expression and then blurted out, "I've already told HR." That surprised me enough that I stopped packing. Then, she claimed to have gone to work that morning and explained what was happening to the HR team. She said they're launching a formal investigation. Then she said David would probably lose his job and commented that it didn't matter what happened to her. She said that she'd broken it off with David in the hotel and that they'd fought because this jackass told her it would be easier for them now. I was really bitter and congratulated her on finally showing an ounce of integrity. Watching the effect it had on her, I asked if she would have done it if I hadn't caught her. Her answer was to avoid my question and swear to me she was going to end it. As if this would sway me in some way. Then she starts in on how she wanted to try and fix us. I laughed at her stupid comment and told her there was no us anymore. I was pissed and started in on her on how she killed us over and over every time she gave herself to him. I finished by telling her she was just the person who was currently living in my house. She was now full-on bawling, saying, I know I did, but I never stopped loving you, even when I was with him. I know it doesn't make sense, it's not fair to you, but it's true. This made me laugh at her. What sort of deranged person thinks this is an answer? I was stunned at just how outrageous she was being. Can a person really love another and do that to them? I don't think so. I took the ring out of my pocket and tossed it to her. Then I told her in the most condescending way that I could, that there was no way that someone who loved another could do that. I called her a liar and a cheater, which I wasted my life on. I shoved more clothes into the bag, nearly ripping a drawer out of the dresser. None of this makes any effing sense in my book. How can she stand there telling me she wanted to fix us after 3 freaking years of having an affair? Is that even sane? I ended up being really angry as we had this conversation and yelled at her about her claim she loved me while making love to another man for years. I told her it's not like this was a mistake, it was your choice, which she made repeatedly. She stepped back from me because I was shouting at her at this point. Then I told her that I didn't want to know if there were others besides David because I didn't want to hate and despise her any more than I already did. I didn't need her to hurt me even more. She bristled at that and started saying that she had never done anything before David, but I waved her off. I went off on her for probably 15 full minutes on what she'd done to me, ending with a simple question on how she could even think I could forgive her. At this, she blurted out some nonsense, like, if you give me another chance. I deserve anything you want to do to hurt me. She seemed desperate, watching me. I can't even unpack that comment since it seemed like she wanted me to hit her, cheat on her, or do something even more insane. The offer was stupid and offensive, making me even more exasperated. I just asked her, is that what you think of me? That I'd want to hurt you back? That I'd cheapen myself the way you cheapened us? I don't know what to think anymore. She took an awkward step, like she lost her balance, making me wonder if she'd been drinking. Then she blurts out, I don't know how to live with what I've done. I don't know how to wake up knowing I destroyed the one perfect thing in my life. I can't eat, I can't sleep, I can't breathe knowing you're not here. I zipped up the last suitcase and told her, you managed to sleep just fine next to me for 3 years while screwing him. Don't pretend this is killing you now. But it is killing me. Her voice was barely a whisper. I didn't even want to go down that road, so I told her to get help. She claimed to have a therapy appointment later in the week. Rachel had called her sister to stay with her. I could barely manage a response about that being good as I mindlessly headed for the door. Her final words stopped me. My wife said she knew I'd never trust her again, and that her being sorry wasn't enough. She said I was perfect, and she'd just gotten lost, chasing excitement and danger. It was all lies she'd told herself to justify being selfish. I stood there with my back to her, crushed by more than a decade of memories. I told her, sorry wasn't enough. Then I told her not to hurt herself. She asked in this tiny, broken voice about us getting counseling, maybe someday, even just for closure. I told her I wouldn't promise anything. I was barely getting through each day. I told her that her sister had my number for emergencies. Her sobs followed me down the stairs. From my car, I saw her silhouette in the window, watching me put everything in the car. Her sister texted that she was on her way, and I backed out with one last look at Rachel still standing in the window. That was the last time I saw her before the hospital call. It was just a few days later, her sister found her unresponsive during a night check. Rachel had taken a full bottle of old, unused prescription painkillers from our medicine cabinet, leaving notes for me and her family. This attempt to take her own life seems to have been legit since she washed down the meds with a lot of alcohol. I was told she was borderline when she got to the hospital, but she survived. Unfortunately, the overdose caused a hypoxic brain injury. She has seizures and reduced motor skills. The doctors say some of it might be permanent, but they hope some symptoms will improve. Her memory was also affected to a pretty significant degree. Sometimes, she remembers the hotel incident, and our last talk, but struggles with other memories. She knows me, her family, and close friends, but has trouble with most other people and names. Eventually, Rachel was released from the hospital. As you can probably guess, there are a lot of continuing treatments for her physical and mental health that she's dealing with. I worked out a schedule with her sister, and we pass off general care for Rachel each week. I have filed for divorce, but it's a long process complicated by Rachel's situation. My lawyer has pressed me to stay helpful in my wife's recovery so I can show that I didn't abandon her in a time of need. I'm not sure how her health issues will impact the divorce, but I'm going to follow the advice of my legal team, so I don't end up getting screwed. Sometimes, I catch her crying, and the only thing she can say is that she knows she hurt me but can't tell me why. Other times, when I take over from her sister, she looks at me with the same smile and love we had early in our marriage, like she has no idea what's been going on. She spends most of her time in bed or sitting watching TV, using a wheelchair or cane to get around. She can walk but has terrible balance. For now, this is where we're at. Our divorce is still ongoing, but I'm helping her sister care for her. I have no idea what I'm supposed to do at this point. Friends and family have almost universally told me I should help her, at least until she gets back on her feet. That's simply not an option. I will help her until the divorce is complete, and then she'll be on her own. David was terminated from the company for violating company rules on relationships with subordinates. Out of spite, I did make sure that his wife knew what happened with Rachel's help, but that's a whole different story. Yes, most times she remembers David, but she does so with an extreme anger. Rachel was put on administrative leave but wasn't fired. Currently, she's on long-term disability, still living in our marital home. I rented a small apartment a few miles away until the divorce is finalized, and we are forced to sell the house. The saddest part of this for me is that when I think of Rachel, I always see the guilty look on her face at the hotel. I may update at some point, but hopefully, that's a simple I'm free. Anyway, thanks for letting me vent.
I only post new and unique content. Please like and subscribe.